Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. In this video, I am going to explain about the pulse oximeter, the principle behind the pulse oximeter, and what is oxygen saturation levels, and what is heart rate, and what are their normal values, the cost of pulse oximeter, and the procedure. What is pulse oximeter? Pulse oximeter, it is nothing but it is a small device. With the help of pulse oximeter, we can measure the oxygen saturation levels as well as the pulse rate. What is oxygen saturation? Generally, we will breathe every day and we inhale oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. The oxygen which enters the lungs, from the lungs it enters the blood. In the blood, this oxygen is carried by the hemoglobin protein of RBC. With the help of oxygen saturation, we can calculate the amount of oxygen which was carried by the hemoglobin. This is nothing but the amount of hemoglobin or amount of oxygen which was carried by the hemoglobin is measured by the oxygen saturation. And with the help of pulse oximeter, we can also measure the pulse rate. Pulse rate, it is nothing but the beats per minute. That is, in 1 minute of time, how much rate or how many times the heart beats is measured by the pulse rate. Next comes the principle of pulse oximeter. To understand the principle, we should know two terminologies. That is oxyhemoglobin and other one is deoxyhemoglobin. What is oxyhemoglobin? Oxyhemoglobin is nothing but it is the hemoglobin which carries the oxygen. This oxyhemoglobin generally absorbs the infrared light. And next comes the deoxyhemoglobin. The hemoglobin which does not carry oxygen is known as deoxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin absorbs the infrared light, whereas deoxyhemoglobin absorbs the red light. So, whatever the pulse oximeter we are using, this pulse oximeter contains two light emitting diodes. That is, one light emits infrared light and other one emits red light. So, whenever we use the pulse oximeter, these two lights, the infrared light as well as the red light, pass through our body, and depending upon the amount of absorption of infrared light and red light, in general terminology, depending upon the amount of oxyhemoglobin in our body, we will get the oxygen saturation levels. And this is about the principle of pulse oximeter. And there are different types of pulse oximeter like fingertip pulse oximeter, handheld pulse oximeter, and tabletop pulse oximeter. Fingertip pulse oximeter is generally used in home based, and handheld pulse oximeter as well as tabletop pulse oximeter is used in hospitals. How we'll use the pulse oximeter? First of all, before using the pulse oximeter, we should wash our hands, and if any nail polish is there, better to remove the nail polish, because placing the pulse oximeter on the nail polish may vary the results. So, remove the nail polish and measure the oxygen saturation. And select a finger. Generally, index finger or middle finger can be used to measure the pulse oximeter. And place the pulse oximeter probe on the finger and turn on the device. And watch out for a beep sound. Within 15 to 20 seconds, you will get a beep sound, and your oxygen saturation levels as well as the BPM, that is pulse rate, beats per minute, is measured, are displayed on the pulse oximeter. And not only on the finger you can use pulse oximeter, you can also use pulse oximeter, or you can place pulse oximeter probe on the earlobes, palm or foot. Palm or foot approach is generally used in children. Next comes the normal oxygen saturation levels. In normal or healthy individuals, the oxygen saturation is 95 to 100%. Whereas if the oxygen saturation levels is 91 to 94%, we can categorize them into mild hypoxemia. Hypoxemia is nothing but oxygen saturation levels are decreased. So that condition is known as hypoxemia. If the oxygen saturation levels is 86 to 90, we can categorize them into moderate hypoxemia. And if the oxygen saturation levels is less than 85%, we can them into severe hypoxemia. Mild hypoxemia requires care, whereas moderate and severe hypoxemia requires hospital administration and oxygen supply should be given to them. Next comes the heart rate. Normally the heart rate is 60 to 90 beats per minute. Next comes the cost of pulse oximeter. Cost of pulse oximeter may vary depending upon the brand, but generally fingertip pulse oximeter cost is 1500 to 2000 rupees. This is all about the pulse oximeter and their usage and the principle. If you like the video, please share and subscribe our channel. Thank you.